This show is sponsored by the Comics Shop. We hope you enjoy the show.
All right, g'day. Welcome to another episode of Tuesday Chinwag. So my name is Leigh Chalker. I'm the creator of the independent Australian comic book Battle for Bustle, published through ComX. And look, there's a couple of things we'll run through this evening before we introduce our guest. So when we put up the little yellow ticker box that runs across the bottom, you will see a couple of addresses because Chinwag is simultaneously live cast across two channels. Now, one channel is ComX. And so let me discuss ComX with you briefly. ComX is a community that's basically split into three sections. So there is a community where people get together, like-minded interests, and they discuss many things, learn things, talk comics, shoot the breeze, and basically get to know each other. There is also the live streaming section, which Chinwag is a part of. There is also the just finished great show, Let's Make a Comic Book. There's the Oz Comic show, and there's also the classic Friday night drink and draw. And there is also the ComX Studio. So ComX Studio is a group of Australian creators that create comic books and put them out under the ComX Studio system. And you will see the ComX Studio people around Australia comic book conventions for the rest of the year. And the ComX shop is the most important thing because everyone in Australia that does independent comic books or comic books that wants a place to sell their comic books online can go to the ComX shop, which is the sponsor of this show. And for a $9 flat rate, you can buy one comic, you can buy 50 comics. You don't even have to buy my comic. You just buy somebody's comic because spread the love is the best thing. Put ink on people's, like in their hands and let them do their thing, man, and be creative. And it's all good because that just creates such good stuff. So the other channel that you're going to be on, if you're watching, is Aussieverse. Now, Aussieverse is an Australian group of guys that look after all things comic in a pop cultural sense. They have, let me see here, what do they have? Interviews with people. They have clips of bands. They have live shows, which are fun. They create their own teams. They have customs. They talk about the new comics that are coming out. They just love this stuff. They're oozing stuff, man. Like it's, I hope you've polysealed your computer because the love just pumps out of that thing, man. So get on and have a look at both of those guys, the channels, because there's lots of content and you may find something that you like. So the most important thing as well is to like and subscribe them anywhere you can find them. They are on Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram, and all other places in between. If you like and you subscribe, you get the little bell that reminds you the shows are coming. And with the likes and subscribes, it's like a tree. You water the tree with the likes and subscribes, it grows, spreads the love, and it reaches more people and alerts them to Australian comic books. And, makes people aware that there's a really humming industry out there of Australian creatives that are, working their tails off to bring you some good stuff. All right, so for anyone who hasn't seen the show is based on who, what, where, when, why, and how. Sometimes we get through these questions, other times we do not. This show is fluid. I like it being fluid because I think that's the best way to go. We can go left, we can go right, up or down, all places in between, and who knows where we'll take it. And all comments are welcome, so do feel free to flick up some comments. So, after that very long introduction, which I think I might be getting better at and winding it down, I'm going to introduce tonight's guest because he's a dude that I've wanted to meet for a long time. I've liked his artwork. I see he's a busy man. He's a hard-working dude. He's friendly. He's smiling. He's always happy, and that's the best way to be. And that is Mr. Louie Joyce. How are you, mate?
I'm very well, Leigh. Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. Yeah. And I think you did a great job on that intro. It was perfect.
Yeah, thank you, man. Thank you. They're different every week. I just roll the dice, man. Do you know what I mean? Like, I try and just do it. It's one of those weird things, man. I have a couple of little notes, but then generally I just try and ad lib. So
off the cuff. That's generally how I approach things as well.
Yeah. I think, Mel, like I reckon it, it just adds a little bit of spice and a little bit of pizzazz to things, man. Like, because like a little bit too much, regimentality gets a little bit dull sometimes. Like, and if you're a bit off the cuff, like you sort of, like I guess living on the edge a little bit, man.
It can go really, really right. It can go wrong, but it can go really, really right. And most of the time it does.
See, the fun part is, man, the fact that disaster is only, like such a short distance away, So you just see how, how it rock and rolls. All right. So we will get our festivities underway now. Mr. Joyce, I'm going to come in for the very first question that I always ask people, and you answer it any way you wish, my friend.
All right.
Who?
Who? Doctor Who? Can't be the first person to have said that.
I think you might be, actually. I think you might be, mate. So
I'm not even a Doctor Who fan, so I'm surprised by that. But who? I'm Louis. I'm Louis. I'm a comic artist, an illustrator, based in Wollongong. I've been making comics and making pictures since I was a little kid, and I love doing it, and that's kind of what I do. What else? I'm a rollerblading enthusiast is generally what I call it. So I love rollerblading. I love skating. That's defining a lot of my passion and my interest at the moment these days. I'm a family man. I got 3 kids, a beautiful wife. Just getting by day to day, really, and enjoying as much of what life throws at me as I can.
No, that's sounds like you've got a pretty good little wicket there, man, and you're happy. You're smiling like a Cheshire cat there, mate. So
it's chaos. It's like my life is chaos all the time, especially 3 young kids. But it's entertaining chaos, and it's great chaos, and it's chaotic chaos. But it's good, It's hard not to smile.
No, that's good, man. That's good. I like that. It's Nick May. Hello, Leigh and Louie. Have a great chat. Thank you, Nick. Thank you for your constant support. Peter Lane, g'day, guys. Good on you, buddy. Thank you. Nice to see you all. Hello, Dave Dye. Lovely fella, Dave Dye. Oh, Ben Sullivan. Great to see you back, Leigh. Hello, Louie. Hello, Ben. And congratulations on all your God Amongst Men success that you guys are having on your Kickstarter over there. So,
cool.
Mate, I like Happy. I think Happy is a good place to be, Louie. I see your art, like popping up on like my socials and stuff. And Absent Minded, hi guys. Hello, mate. How are you? And I like the vibrancy of it, man. So at some point tonight, when we roll further into the conversation, one of the things that I particularly like about creativity is the fact that people's uniqueness comes through in what they do and their personality. And from already having spoken to you previously before we started Chinwag, so max half hour, I'm gauged on you and your like happiness, your light, your colorful nature, and your big old happy smile, mate, on the artwork that you're putting out, because it does have a pop feel to it, and I like that. You're already.
Thank you very much.
No, that's cool, man. That's cool. So Louis, we're going to test your memory here, man, and I'm willing to bet that you're probably going to do better than me, because my memory is not particularly good. Sometimes, sometimes it's not. This is the fluidity of the show. So let's test you out, man. Let's flex those muscles.
All right, we'll see how you go. I don't know how good my memory is, but we'll see.
No, that's cool. Well, hey, we were talking about walking on the edge, man. So let's just let's see how we rock and roll. Let's go back to little Louie, and where'd you grow up? How did you fall in love with drawing, comics, rollerblading, skateboarding? What are the things that like put you on the path, man?
Yeah, I mean, so it's hard because like I've said this kind of story a whole bunch of times, over the years.
Well, you haven't said it to me, man.
I know, but like it's hard. Sometimes it's hard to know, or it's easy to forget like the actual memory and just remember the story that you've told over and over again. You know what I mean? But to be honest, I don't really remember like the first moment of loving drawing or the first discovery of comics. Like some people can say, someone handed me a copy of Uncanny X-Men, yada yada, and that was it. I was hooked. But I don't remember a specific comic that made me fall in love with the medium. I don't remember a specific moment of drawing and being, wow, this is it. This is incredible. This is what I want to do. But I think like a lot of kids, I just really loved drawing from a really early age. And I've seen that with my own kids, like there's something really powerful even at a really young age, like the fact it's one of the early moments of creating something as an individual. You have a surface or piece of paper or a wall as often, or whatever, something they're not supposed to be drawing on, but you have this thing and they have this thing in their hand, and they put the two together and they make a mark. And I've seen in my kids' eyes this like widening moment of like, oh, I did that. I made that happen, and I think that's a really kind of powerful thing about drawing that kids really glom onto at an early age. And certainly I did. So I think I was just drawing for ages, and comics were something that was around from an early age for me. So my dad collected comics. My mum would draw little comic strips. They're both like creatives. They're both writers and storytellers and stuff. So it was a creative-ish environment, and certainly having like comics around at an early age and loving drawing, and I guess having some basic understanding of the fact that a comic is at a base level drawing meant that I was just immediately kind of hooked on it as an object. It's so accessible as well. It's so easy to, even if you can't read, you look at the pictures, you understand, you put the pieces of the puzzle together. And so comics were just around from a really early age, and I just completely fell in love with them. And that was it, really. This is all led to where I am now. But for the most part, I just loved like the colorful, the vibrancy on the pages, the colors, the stories, the characters, the marks, all this kind of stuff. And I love drawing, and comics were a fun experience, but also they were kind of a classroom or like a teacher. As a kid, so much of my early drawing skills were developed from just copying panels straight out of a comic, copying pages or characters or specific drawings or stuff. And then as I got older, starting to realize and pay attention to the way that different artists would draw different things, like whether it's just a brick wall or trees, or how they would use lines to kind of describe form and create a sense of three-dimensionality or whatever it is they were doing. But comics they just had so much to offer. I think they still do, but they definitely still do. But certainly at a young age, they just had so much to offer, and I really loved that about them. And so I think that's beautiful, man. I think you're you struck a chord with me there, because similar path with me too. Dad collected comic books. With your mum and dad, and you just said that they were like creative in their own way, and your mum was always doing comic book strips and things like that.
that was obviously a passion for them to begin with, and that passion has flowed over into you as a young fella. And when I also was Dad a collector, or Dad was like an artist sort of type, or Mum was the collector and the writer? How did that?
Their dad was the collector. They're both writers, and my dad worked in theatre for most of my life, and he's always been a writer / storyteller. My mum is a writer, a musician, a performer. So they're both very much storytellers, but skewing more towards the writing side of things, not so much the visual art drawing side of things. My mum would draw little cartoony drawings and comic strips, which I think in a lot of ways were inspired by drawings that her mum would sometimes do, and sketches that her mum would do. So I think I see that kind of lineage there. But my dad was definitely the comic collector. Like he had and he still is, he had a very eclectic collection, and a lot of it for a long time I was way too young or just too young to appreciate all the great stuff that he had, until now, really, in recent years, where I'm slowly just stealing bits of his collection.
Just leave the house with a box. It's like, hey, Louis, I had 30 boxes, mate. I'm down to 12. Oh, it's pretty
much what I do. Just don't tell him. No, he knows. He knows, and he does the same to me now as well. So it goes back and forth. But yeah, so he collected, and he really would read a lot of the underground and alternative comics. So the Hernandez brothers and Love and Rockets and Alan Moore and Swamp Thing and Frank Miller, and he would have all that stuff, and which is all really amazing. But as a young kid, I was just like, comics are incredible, and I really glommed onto like the superhero aesthetic, that kind of world, and that and those kind of colorful characters. And so I didn't pay much attention to a lot of the stuff he had.
Yeah.
Although that being said, certain things would break through. Like Lone Wolf and Cub, I read at like way too early an age, but like I can still track the influence of reading that at a young age through to where I am now, and the way that I attempt to make comics and convey motion and things like that. So he was a collector. Mum, and they're both still creative, and so there was a lot of that in the house. Although in the houses, because my parents were split, so I would spend a lot of time going between the two. So I grew up in Newcastle, which is where my dad lived, and my mum was in Sydney, and I have an older sister, and so we would kind of go back and forth, and sometimes we'd be living at one house, and sometimes we'd be split, living with different parents. And so there was a lot of like drives between Sydney and Newey, and I would always have like a stack of comics to take in the car with me and read on those drives, and so they were, when I say they had a lot of value for me, that was like, it's very multifaceted. They were very much a companion.
Sentimental and like artistic in nature and stuff. No, man, like I totally believe it or not, mate. I 100% completely understand, man. It's it sounds, would I be remiss in thinking that your love of comic books, the love of probably having that connection with the comic books to your dad, and the love of drawing that was given to you by your mum, I guess, and it all sort of molds together and things, with your burgeoning love of art and color and the superheroes, and that was a release for young Louis at that stage, like you felt that possibly is some of where the connection came into your drawing and stuff.
Yeah, definitely. I think so. Like, I think that it was a very consistent, safe space for me to escape into that wouldn't change regardless of some of the stuff that's changing around me at times. And that was comforting. And knowing that and seeing the things that my parents were doing and the way that they were interacting with this idea of telling stories, and not that I don't know that I really registered that then, but I think looking back at it, it was definitely, that was a space where I could be like, oh yeah, like I want to do stuff like that, and I can do it through this medium that I love. But like,
I definitely get you, because I had similar. Dad was the comic collector, was not an artist. My mother is very, very handy at drawing, painting, hasn't given herself enough time at it, but if you need her to do something or assist in a very creative, crafty way, very hands-on, can do it. Was very much encouraged from a young fella to draw, because I'm not now, but I was at that age, similar ages, I guess we're talking about, an only child, and was like you, found a solace and a comfort in not quite being able to articulate what was going on around me in the world, you know what I mean? But, like to have those comic books that, and you could sit on the bed just by yourself, in your own little world, and you become one with those characters, and then you want to draw them. And then, there's a character that you gravitate to, and, you start with your foregrounds, the character. And then slowly, as you were saying, like you start noticing different. I don't have to draw bricks like the bricks that are in the wall. You know what I mean? What is this crazy thing? I'm going to try that. And it just, releases a whole lot of tension, I guess, man, when you're a young fellow, when you can like create your own world, I guess, man, which is something I think I'll shoot at you here, because it's not just, I always thought drawing was the thing for me. I class myself as a painter more than a drawer. I've since realized there's not much separation between either medium for me. It's a release. So therefore the creativity, which has been the one fundamental thing throughout my life, ups and downs, peaks and troughs, and that, people come and go, people stay, that sort of thing. Drawing, creativity has kept me going. And do you find that for you, where you are now in life, like even you found that like that's still ingrained in you, like you have those moments and it's like you pick up that pen and you just sit there and just do your thing? And
yeah, definitely. I think I've often said that I'm kind of addicted to drawing. Like if I don't do it for a while, I start to feel fidgety. I start to feel a lack of something, and it's just something that it feels like an integral part of my being now, like how I process things and events and places, and just unwind from all the stuff that's happening around me sometimes, and it being my job has been hard, because for a long time I didn't think that, I didn't think I would have proclaimed way back when I was a child that I would be a comic artist, but that never really was a possibility for me for a long time. And I love drawing, but I was never the most gifted or like objectively the best. It's hard to quantify that stuff, but like, there were always other kids that could draw like more realistically, or other kids that I hung out with that would be better at graph than me, that just, I'd never thought I was the kind of the best drawer or most creatively interesting or not interesting, most like gifted person around. So I think for a long time, like it wasn't really a thing that I thought would ever happen in terms of making comics. And there were little things along the way that kind of just kept encouraging me to keep doing it. And certainly like going to a zine fair was huge. So it would have been like one of the Tina zine fairs in Newcastle years ago, where I met, I think, like Tim McEwen and Maddie Hewen was there. So I met like a bunch of creators that were doing it, and that was eye-opening, because it wasn't like, you know, famous people overseas or mythical beings like Jack Kirby or, you know, whoever it is that are making comics. It's like some dude that lives around the corner, you know, that is doing it, and they looks amazing, and they're getting it out there, and you know, that was hugely influential for me. But you know, I went through, for years I just worked in graphic design and kind of whatever jobs, and I still kept drawing because there's something about it that I just really love doing, and I think that it was so ingrained into how I process the world. And it was my girlfriend then who found the course at Design Centre Enmore, the Enmore TAFE. She found an illustration course, and she was like, you should just give it a go. And it was a really great course. And it was since doing that course that I was able to work professionally as an illustrator, so freelance. And then I really started focusing on making comics in that time. And, you know, for a long time I was just making comics in my spare time, but now it's gotten to the point where it's a large part of my my actual work. So it's been a long journey to get where I am. And the main reason that I really got here is just that I never really fully stopped drawing, because I think it's that thing you're saying, that it's just a part of how you process, how you express yourself, and something I just feel like I need to do a bit, you know.
Do you feel after, because do you ever stop to reflect on that journey to where you are now? Sometimes it's not really that much time to stop and reflect on stuff these days. 3 kids, a wife, you're busy, mate, you know. Like, you'd have a few little moments there where you'd kick back and go, whoa, okay, you know.
Yeah, I do. I feel very lucky to be where I am. I also am understanding of how much work it's taken, and in a lot of ways the various sacrifices you have to make. You know, you don't earn a lot of money in comics. You don't make comics if that's what you want to do. So there's a lot more of ways to have financial security and all of these things in other industries, even within illustration. But so there are decisions that you make and that are based on various things at various times in your life, and they change and they're fluid. But yeah, I do reflect sometimes, but most of the time I just am happy to get on with whatever I'm trying to get done.
No, that's good. I like that. It's I think one thing that I learned, because like I haven't been doing this, like I've been drawing my whole life too, you know, and had you know, want to do this, want to do that, but you know, life pulled me in different directions for varying other reasons, you know. And but I kept drawing, you know what I mean? Like it wasn't as often as say you, but like if my mum was in the room, for example, when I was a young fella, much to like what you were saying, if I hadn't drawn for 3 or 4 days, mum would be very much like, what's wrong?
Yeah.
And I'd be like, what do you mean? She's like, I haven't seen you pick up a pencil and sit down. Like, what's wrong? And I'm like, oh, I don't know. Like, you know, it might have been trouble at school. It might have been trouble with the girl. It might have been, God knows, you know, for whatever reason it was. But it, from, you know, like from a very early age, I guess it was identifiable to those people around me that, you know, it was something that I had to do as well. And just purely the reason why I ask you about just if you've had time to reflect on your journey, and we'll get more into like some details stuff with you soon. But just yeah, I've been on a journey. I won't, you know, like it's been a journey, and lots of things have provided me with time to be rather introspective and and reflective of my course of how I am here in this moment as well. You said something about like we connect, you and I, on like the drive. You can't. It's like it's almost in the blood. This shit, man. Do you know what I mean? Like you just stop. Like even though some people wonder why you're doing it, probably those that know you best know you need to do it. But the one thing that that just resonated with me, what you said is, and not to scare people off or not to freak people out, but this is the chinwag. Chinwag's a fluid, and like this is just a conversation, and like where my mind's going right now, and the weird turn events of thought processes and that sacrifice it to create even one comic book. The sacrifices that and it is possibly every sacrifice you could think. Louis, you may agree or disagree, but staying at home, not being able to go to your favorite football match or hang out with your mates and do those things because you've got to get this thing done. You don't know why you've got to get it done. You just know you've got to get it done. It's the most important thing to you, And I like the fact that you've alluded to you also feeling like that, man, because with that, you would have questioned yourself a few times, I'm assuming, like why am I doing this to myself?
Yeah.
Every
time. Every time.
I had those questions yesterday, man. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Of myself, it's and then just sort of push them back, man. Like I think sometimes to a degree you get so far down the track, man, there's no turning back. But do you know what I mean? Like it's just like this is the road, man. So I got to take it. I grab that machete and just carve this sucker out. It's with like you were saying before, because I reckon, like for me, I don't have kids, and you're the second person that I've come across doing these chinwags, and these are just little things that I like to meeting people. And I don't have kids, but one of the things that I would have always liked to have been able to do with kids is like sat with them drawing, like not even teaching, just seeing that wide-eyed wow, like creativity and time to yourself, that moment of meditation and quiet and calm and just in the stream of conscious sort of flow, like of creativity and all that. Do you find that uplifting, man, when one of your little packers like are pumping out some good stuff,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's like it is because it is really such a nice thing when you just get into a vibe of everyone sitting around a table and just like drawing something, and then everyone's drawing something else, or everyone's trying to draw the same thing, whatever it is, but everyone's in that kind of frame of mind, and they're all having a really good time, and it is lovely. It's not always like that though. Like half the time it is like them demanding that I draw with them, and then like taking the pencils out. Like as soon as I grab a pencil, they want that pencil, and then I've got to grab another, and then they want that pencil. And so sometimes it's like, and that can be fun too. But it's changed over like the kids' ages and their where they're at developmentally and stuff like that. But we've had great periods where I've just had a big, A2 sketchbook that I'll put out, and we'll just all sit there and we've filled up pages of that, and that's really fun. And we make zines together and things like that. And in fact, over the past, I guess it must be over the past 4 to 5 years, I've gone through quite a stylistic shift in my work.
Mm.
And I credit that to a few things, but one of the things is that just drawing with my kids with like really shitty colored pencils, you know, and just having to work fast while before they rip that pencil out of my hand, and then and then just having to grab another color. And that really, as I'm drawing, like I still really get into it, and I really started just focusing on, you know, shapes and angles and things like that, and that translated back into my creative practice, my approach to drawing in my work and my comics, and you can definitely see that in my work now. My work has gotten incredibly stylized over the past few years, and so just that simple act of sitting down and drawing with my kids, I do credit largely with that stylistic kind of shift that my work has taken under. So it's a really nice thing to do. Sometimes it ends in tears for everyone, because you know, some kid wants the sketchbook and a huge fight will break out or whatever it is, but but there are those golden moments where we're all just drawing, and it's beautiful.
Yeah, I think that is lovely, man. It's also nice to think that that you can learn lessons from anywhere, can't you? You know, like who would have thought that you know, you would credit those beautiful moments that with refining and possibly defining like your art style where you are now, you know, like to those family moments and things, you know, because I find that that portion of your tale quite uplifting at this moment, man, because, you know, I like the idea of that the communal learn together, bond over those sorts of things. You know what I mean? Talking, you know, learning, seeing, you know, like evolving together and things like that. And I think that's what art is all about. And I also think it's lovely that it's you can learn anything from anywhere, can't you? You know what I mean? If you just keep your eyes open for that magic, man. You know what I mean? Like it just starts flowing on you, you know, and you don't even realize that it's happening and things like that. You know, it's even textures and things like that, man, you know, like all the things you do learn, it's really quite strange. Sometimes you know, sometimes sitting down, you know, like by myself in a room, you know what I mean, drawing and, you know, like pondering over, is that right, is that wrong, and doubting yourself. Sometimes the act of just, I guess, devolving as an adult into that mindset of a child and just, you know, like just let it flow, man, let it go. And, you know, like that's it. It's just, that's a out bush, you know, like, and she's done. And yeah, it's cool because there's no judgment, there's no you know, there's no competition, like you were saying before. When you're young, you know, and you were younger, you know, you were suggesting there were people that could draw better than you and people that, you know, like could be a little bit, you know, maybe their anatomy was better, maybe they understood storytelling a little bit better. But I would, man, I would ask you this: are they still drawing?
I have no idea. I don't know.
But
I hope so.
You know,
I hope so.
You know, like it's hard work because
yeah,
you are, man. This is one thing that, like, because I don't know, like with chinwag, like I love meeting people that like creators, you know, like for obviously our love of comic books and things, but I think that the best story is your story, you know, like the story of the creator, you know, like and that's why I love doing chinwags. So I don't really vet, for example, like, you know, I don't go and like, oh, this person does that and that, you know, like I go back into people's histories before I meet them, you know. I like a fresh take, if you know what I mean, like, you know, 100% respect, and, you know, like you talk and, you know, like you gas bag and, you know, like you talk about things on a mutual, you know, level. One thing I did notice though, I couple of probably maybe a month, 6 weeks ago, when I first reached out to you, because like I thought about your age. Like this is what happens with chinwag. I think about people and I've got lists, you know, like of this is who I want to have on chinwag and I want to meet, you know, and everything's fluid, you know, like sometimes it's like I wanted you 20 weeks ago, but times don't work, you know, like dates and times and things and that. And I was pondering because I was like, and you keep an eye just through socials on, you're at this convention, or you're at that gathering, you're here. And I remember thinking to myself when we were first talking, I was like, man, Louis gets around, you know what I mean? Like, he got a couple of comic books out, I didn't realize, like there were so many. And I went on this like little, search, and I came across, I can't remember the actual event, but man, I'm pretty sure it was like 2015, 2016.
Yeah.
And you were a guest at a convention, and you were one of, look, it's not an exact number, but let's just say 20 people that had their profile images on there. Like, these people are attending and stuff,
Yeah.
And I was like looking at this poster, and I recognized you. I recognized Darren Close, and I recognized Stuart Black.
Yeah.
And there was not another person, and no disrespect to any of these people, this is just part of the story of my recollection. You three were the only ones that I recognized out of that group. And this was like a Melbourne show or a Sydney show. So it wasn't like a town show. And I was like, wow, Louis has been, like in a month, like I was like, Louis, man, you've been shoveling, man. You've been working, like it's respect for that. Like, I had no concept that you'd been around for such a long time. So
the first comic convention I did would have been, I think it was the very first Comic Gong, which is the Wollongong show that happens, and that was in 2013.
Yeah, right.
That was a tiny show at Corrimal Library, and I'd finished studying in 2012, I think, studying illustration. So, but I'd done zine fairs before that. So I'd been doing the MCA zine fair for years and just selling like really very like small mini comics and really DIY zines. Once I did this course in illustration, then I really started to focus on doing some more like comic stuff, I think the first comic I did would have been the first like more mainstreamy type thing was like a Killaroo story that I did with Ryan K. Lindsay.
Yep.
And that must have been in 2013. Yeah, that must have been in 2013.
What was that in, mate? What was that book?
I don't even know which. I can't remember which one it was in. Like, it was an anthology.
Was it the Gang Wars anthology?
Yeah, maybe. It was like a 13-page short story about this like mad scientist Spikey who was like trying to create a Frankenstein monster. It was a lot of fun, and led to a really great working relationship, like collaborative relationship, and really, really great friendship with Ryan Lindsay, who we've collaborated on a bunch of comics together. And he's a sick mate. So it all kind of started there, and that was one of the key missing ingredients for me, I think, prior to, I was making zines and writing my own little mini comics and stuff, but delving into the collaborative side of comics was really, really beneficial. It formed these great relationships. It pushed me out of my comfort zone. It allowed me a space to really kind of push my work to another level that I was, or whatever level I was kind of striving for it to get to. So yeah, that was really good. And so I started doing cons, I think, like around then, Supernovas, and I don't think Oz Comic Con was even around back then, but or maybe it was. I can't remember. It's a bit wild. It's 10 years ago now, which is crazy. So yeah, I've been doing them for a while, and I sort of self-published my own little books, like Mishmash and Hodgepodge, were these, don't have any within reach, little like just magazines I would do that would have short comics in them. Some were fully my own, some were collaborative comics, and it just slowly built from there. Working with Ryan, he's a great writer, and he's done a whole bunch of stuff, and he knows a lot of people internationally as well. He was going overseas and doing overseas. Like he went to, I want to say New York or maybe San Diego Comic Con, one of those big ones. And I've never gone over to any of those. You know, it was through him knowing Paul Allor, a writer based in the States, that kind of linked me and Paul up, which led to me doing Past the Last Mountain, which was I guess it felt like my first real comics gig. You know, it was a 4-issue miniseries. There was originally another artist on board, but he had to drop out, so I kind of came in late and worked with a layout artist named Gannon Beck, who was another incredible illustrator, amazing storyteller in his own right. So I learned so much working on that book and working over the top of his layouts. And yeah, it just snowballed from there. You know, there was that comic that then a couple of years later got the attention of Norm Harper, who approached me about illustrating this graphic novel he'd written called Haphaven, which is what I should have had some of these. I don't have them, but which was the next big kind of comics project that I did. You know, that was like a standalone graphic novel, all ages kind of story. And at the time, my eldest son was like 2, I think, when I was working on that, you know, running around the house behind me. And that was really a special job because I knew making that comic that it would be a book that I'd be able to read with him in like a few short years. And I could already see so much of his personality coming out that I was able to put a lot of that into the character of Alex, the main character in the book. And yeah, so yeah, I've been around for a while, I guess. I mean, it depends on your scale, on your
oh man, I don't keep scales. It's just, you know, like it's I really just thought like, wow, you know, like this dude's just put in so much work. And then I'm like,
I love doing conventions because they are rejuvenating in a lot of ways. They're absolutely exhausting in a lot of ways, but they are inspiring and rejuvenating, and you meet so many people. You get to talk directly to people about your work, which often you can sit in a room and for however long, a year, making a comic and be so kind of obsessed with just the making of the book that you don't, and you're not talking to anyone about it. You don't really get time to formulate like thoughts about what that book means to you or what it represents or what you love about it or what you hope people will find in it. And being at a comic convention, it's a weird thing because it's like a sales thing, right? I'm trying to sell you a product, but also it's actually a space where a lot of really honest interactions and spontaneous interactions happen with all types of people, not just comic geeks or cosplayers, or it's like all kinds of people are at these events, and you get to discuss of all ages as well. So you get to discuss your work with them, and often they might ask questions that you would never have thought to ask, or say really nice things or whatever it is. So yeah, I've continued doing comic conventions this whole time just because, also catching up with friends, the networking aspect of it, and the meeting up with people. I say Ryan is a really good mate of mine, but we only ever hang out at comic conventions, but we've formed a really great friendship through all that. So, I love doing them.
I guess, yeah, between you and he. It's that's really, really nice story, man. It's I like the thoughtfulness of it. It's because I like the fact that, you know, you're surprising me here, Louis. I'm enjoying listening to you, man, because it's like
Thanks.
Like even when you just said then, like the 12 months, like working on a comic book, and that's where we touched on earlier, you would have those moments of exaltation, but you'd also have those moments of self-doubt. But then, even though you said you don't get much time to reflect, you're sort of reflecting now on the fact that, your eldest son is, like his characteristics are deeply interwoven into Alex, the main character of that book. So forever link, like forever, you'll have those moments when, moments when you can go back and read it if you've read it. And like, it's, look, man, Louis, I'm enjoying what you're talking about, man, because to me, I think that anyone that's listened to me gas bag on these channels knows how much I love the comic book medium in general. I think it's the perfect blend of art, story. It allows the reader to add their own theatre, emotions of theatre of the mind.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And ebb and flow. And it's a very, it can bring the person that's holding it into their hand, and, there are there's so many lovely differences to comic books too. You can have, the genres that are involved, from detective stories to like, slice of life stories to, like fantasy to adventure and all these things. There's so many different genres for everyone and each and every one of us. But, you were mentioning, I want to get to, like, I've got a fascination and a like mad respect for people that started kicking with like minis, right? And your home stuff. Like one of my great mates, Ryan Vella, been doing this stuff since 1994, and that dude will pump out comic books, pretty much at the library, like photocopy them, man, staple them, and like go out and sell them and that, and send them around. And there's so many other people. Nick May, who's watching, does minis. Like Neil Blandon does minis. Like, there's dozens of people out there that do them that like hands-on, like, not going to printers. I'll do it myself, like I just want to get it out. Like, was that and it's a ballsy move, but for people, I don't think people give the groundwork of minis enough credit to creators, because it does build encouragement, but it builds encouragement in two ways: to work on your art and your storytelling, but it also builds encouragement to have that piece of product in your hand, so this is attainable. You know what I mean? So like, what's the next step? What age were you when you decided you wanted to start pumping out minis, mate? Before you even looked at like your graphic designing, I'm assuming. Were you younger than your
I was younger than that. I think I went to a zine making workshop years ago at the Palais Theatre in Newcastle.
Yeah.
I was in early high school, I think, around this time. So it must have been like 12, 13 or something. And it was just a zine making workshop, and it was a lot of fun. And that was actually a collaborative experience because, I didn't really know what I was doing, and I felt maybe a bit intimidated because there was a lot of people doing stuff. But I was there with my dad, and he came up with some ideas for stories, and we just kind of made these little zines. One of which actually was called Skating into Oblivion, if I remember correctly, and it was all about skating. I hadn't thought of that, and so it was around that time, I think, and then going to the zine fair aspect of those events was really inspiring, as I mentioned before. And so for me, that seemed just like a much more attainable and achievable level of doing something. And I'd certainly tried like doing bigger stuff as well. I'm pretty sure I tried making a graphic novel adaptation of the the movie Romeo Must Die, which is like a kung fu film.
Yeah, Jet Li.
From the early 2000s. Yeah, Jet Li and Aaliyah. Amazing film. It's so good. It's so good. I love that film. And so yeah, like I would do stuff like that. I would try and also turn that into a comic, or I wish I knew where that was, because I'd love to see what it's like. I can't remember it, but yeah, doing small things, I was just more likely to finish them and more likely to have something. And having been exposed to zines and zine making early, that just seemed like a much more achievable, rewarding, and also, well, I guess later on also then knowing that it's something that I just have complete control over. Like I don't have to, I can decide the format and the paper stock and the binding method and whatever it is, all of these things. You can just be your own boss and just make it and get it out there. And sometimes that can be a crutch. Like you are sticking within a comfort zone. So I think it's like, it can be a double-edged sword, you know, if you are only doing everything the way that you want to do it and that's all you'll do, you can be just sticking within a comfort zone and not pushing yourself.
Yeah.
That's what I really, as I mentioned, that's what I really liked about the collaborative aspect of the comics that I did later, that it pushed me outside that. But yeah, it's a really comfortable space to really explore and start defining your own voice, and what you want to do, and just mess around.
Oh,
and now as a professional now, the advice that I always give people is to just start small. Like don't try and do some big comic. Just do a single page comic, do a 4-page comic, do an 8-page comic. I'm like, do a whole bunch of 8-page comics and don't do anything over that. Full stories told in that setting, and use this zine folding method to turn it into a book. And you can photocopy it. You don't even need staples. And people are like, all right, just chill. I'm like, it's amazing. Look at it. It just folds up. But I think that if you can do that, you can then apply what you've learned there to telling a longer form story. You know, each format has its own unique challenges, but like at a simple level, you are establishing the skills on short stuff that you can apply to everything you do going forward, you know?
Yeah. No, it's a good suggestion to people that are watching too, that haven't, like tried a comic book, because it takes a bit sometimes to muster the courage too, man, to put these things together as well, because man, you're like throwing yourself out there, so it's very nervous too, like, because your artwork and your writing and stuff like that, it's very much a reflection of like of yourself and your thoughts at that time, you know what I mean? Like I suppose it's, it's just in a weird way, I guess it's like walking naked down the street. Some people are going to like it and some people are going to throw stones at you, man. So you just got to sort of get
absolutely
ready, that vulnerability and things. But with because an integral part of you, and from what I've seen, and I want to talk to you about this, because you mentioned you brought in that your first mini with your dad was Skate to Oblivion, and a lot of your pieces, and we'll get to your brand Spanker that's coming out like in a little bit, because you're putting some cover, like work and stuff up for people to have a look at, and I think that's a great thing too, man, that you're so giving with showing your like the production, the steps, that how you work, because I'll come back to what I was saying about the skating, but today, like, I caught you mocking up your cover, and you did it in a fashion that like this is me, and sometimes I wonder where I'm at. And you taught me something today with your light box and things like that you were doing. How you took, different layers, you drew them separately, but then went back and did it in one drawing. Where um, to me, I'd not thought about that. You know what I mean? Because I would sit down and just do that one drawing without the layers, but it just seemed like a really cool exercise. My mind started going, and you got me thinking about, like chinwag tonight and talk, and thank you for that.
Cool.
That's something that I'll try in the future, man.
No worries.
And just the places you can, learn, man, and it's cool. But with so you had Skate into Oblivion. Now, were you the dude that like just discovered skating and rollerblading, like on their own, or was mum and dad like a bit of a, what did we call them when I was young? Skegs, like, oh, look at the old skeg.
Now my dad surfs, so he surfed. He surfed all my life. And so
being in Newcastle, you're down on one of the beautiful beaches there, man, that's known for its surfing.
Yeah, so growing up in Newcastle, I mean, we were in like a little country town, or a little town outside Newcastle, West Wall's End. It's like just off the freeway. So it's like 20 minutes outside of Newcastle. It's not right on the beach, but we would be in the beach all the time. And Dad was very much has grown up as a surfer, and that's a very much a part of my childhood. Although I've never really felt that comfortable in the water.
Did you see Jaws when you were a baby?
Not when I was. I probably saw it too young. Not. Yeah, I don't know. I just could never. I mean, I was comfortable. I just was always had this like fear and respect for the ocean. And I think I just had too many times of just getting dunked repeatedly in between sets, and just especially as a teenager. And as a teenager, I started bodyboarding because bodyboarding was like the it thing at the time. And my mates, like some of my mates were amazing. They were so good. And I tried to be that person, but it wasn't, I never really felt that comfortable in the water, and I loved it, but also didn't in ways. And so, but no, my dad didn't skate, my mum didn't skate, but I started skating, I think when I was in the end of primary school, so it must have been year 6, I think I was, and I'd been over at a mate's house playing Tony Hawk's Pro Skater on the PlayStation. And then we went out for a skate on the streets, and he had rollerblades, and I was like, oh, can I have a turn? Can I have a turn of your rollerblades? And he let me have a turn, and I just got really, really into it at that age, and I just loved it. There's something about rollerblading that I just found like really fun and freeing and exciting. And at that time, like that would have been 1999. So rollerblading as a sport was like boomed intensely through the 90s and into the very early, I think it started to taper off at the late 90s or early 2000s, but it was a big sport in that time, and yeah, so I begged my parents to get me a pair of rollerblades. I think I got like a pair of Roche's M12s from the in-ski in Newcastle, and we would just go around the streets skating, and I had some mates. Mostly they were in and then into high school I made friends with a bunch of skateboarders, mostly skateboarders, although one dude, good friend of mine, Nugget, he was good at everything. Like he was the amazing bodyboarder that I talked about. He was really good at skateboarding, and then he was really good at rollerblading as well. But so we would just go around, we'd catch the bus into town. Newcastle was great because there was a skate park like right on the beach at Newcastle Beach. Pardon me. And so we would just take our skates and our boards, and we would just spend the whole day in at the beach surfing or bodyboarding, and then skating, and then just going off around the streets trying to skate street spots. And yeah, it was just really, really fun. It's something I can
enjoying your time with your mates, man. Good spot.
Yeah.
You know, nice weather, wind blowing, you know.
It was great. And like just good physical activity and pushing ourselves, and you know, the street skating element of the street element of skating, you know, skating in spaces you're not supposed to, the high schools, and getting chased out by security, and you know, all this kind of stuff. All that was really fun as well. So
yeah, that's the good stuff. That's when you know, like you smell, you know, like what are you doing in here? You know, like there's that big talky dude with the fire hose hosing off the, you know, like the concreted area on a Saturday afternoon, man. You know what I mean? And he's chasing you out, you know, like sort of like you'd like had your little rollerblade bandits, man, going on. See, that's good stuff, man. That stuff like fuels, you know, like imagination and stuff too, man. You know, like,
it was great. It was great. And so I did it for years, but later high school years, I started just having this issue with my knee, and it would it was really sore whenever I would skate. And I think we got it. It was like this. It was this thing where the tendon was stronger than the bone, so it was like pulling it off a bit, and there was like a gap.
Is it called Osgood Slatters?
Yeah, that thing. Yeah, Osgood Slatters. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So I had that, and so they recommended that I stop skating for a while. So I did that, and then it kind of just trailed off. I never really got back into it, and I fell out of the culture. Although I was never really truly deep into the culture of rollerblading back in those days, because most of my mates were skateboarders, and most of everyone was bodyboarders. So it was really bodyboarding culture that we were mostly engaging with. But I went to a couple of X Games, and I had a few rollerblading videos, but never really deep dived into it. And then, you know, fast forward to years and years later, living in Wollongong, I've got a kid, a really good friend of mine, Pat Grant, who's also a cartoonist. He started skating as a way to get physical activity, and be in a place where he could take his young son, who's really good friends with my son, and a bunch of kids, like a good network of dads and mums and kids that we have. And so he started skating again, and he used to skateboard back when I was a teenager. And he invited me along, and I think I got a skateboard at first to try and do it, but my mum still had my old Fifth Elements in her garage, and I dug them out, and I had a crack, and I was just like hooked again. And that was early 2020, just before the pandemic hit. And so I just I fell completely in love with rollerblading again, and now it's a huge part of my life once more, and I'm really invested in the culture, and actually talking about drawing with my kids as this catalyst for a stylistic shift. The other big thing that I contribute, or that I attribute that to, is as soon as I started rollerblading again, I immediately started drawing rollerblading. You know, it started to influence my creative practice, and it's a perfect thing for me. It fulfills a lot of the same things that I love about like superhero comics, and you know, it's dynamic angles and movement and urban settings, and you know, like kinetic imagery and all these things. And so I've done just heaps and heaps of rollerblading drawings over the years since I started again, and that's the other thing that really has led to this huge stylistic shift into how I approach my drawings. And I've never really been happier with my drawings than I have been in recent times. And yeah, a lot of that is the rollerblading influence, and it's just so much fun. Like as a physical activity, like I feel good doing it. I'm pushing myself. And in a lot of ways, I'm a better rollerblader than I was as a teenager, because I'm more thoughtful and a bit more in touch with like how I use my body and how to problem solve, trying to figure things out. I'm not by any means an amazing rollerblader in any way. I'm very much it's a hobby and it's a thing that I do for fun. And being much older now, I've hurt myself a couple of times. I don't push myself too hard because I don't want to really hurt myself. So
you don't bounce back as well, mate. It's
man, I've got some ribs that I've got like a spot in my ribs that's still sore if I touch the wrong spot. So
I know that, mate. Bruises don't heal as quick as they used to. Let me tell you, when you get older, it's like there's no bouncing back. I like the fact that you're feeling good now about your artwork, because I would say not only are you physically involved and feeling fit and feeling good, despite the niggles, you're never going to escape them. But as you said, you're thoughtful, you're managing, and that's what you got to do. Be self-aware of like yourself, your body, and that. But you're also you've managed to incorporate two great passions, man, into one medium, with the assistance of like your kids, and bringing them into it, and the stylistic shifts and all that. You know what I mean? Like that's a cool path, man. Like that is a cool path. And it is funny, like we were saying before, how just influences just come along, and they shape you when you, like, I guess maybe before you hook back onto that, like, like I'm back on the skates, man. I'm feeling good. You know what I mean? Were you feeling in some strange way? It's just interesting to know this, or ask, because were you having little doubts about what you were producing at that moment, and then somewhere the skating came along and like sort of reinvigorated something within you?
I always have doubts about what I'm producing at any given time. Like, I think that's just a part of the creative mindset. You can't help it. You put so much of yourself into something, a project or a comic or a drawing or whatever it is, and you can't help it sometimes see the worst aspects of that thing and how that reflects on you in some way. But I do think before I started skating again, I don't know, I was still, there are projects that I'd done then that I still feel really positive about and really happy with. And I also understand that it's not just skating and drawing with my kids that contributes to where I am. It's all of that stuff that I did beforehand as well. So it's all part of the journey, really, to get to where I am. But I do think there was something often, at conventions or in workshops and things, people, younger artists would ask me, how do you get a style? And I've been at things where people are asking other, artists that same questions. How do you define a style? Like, how do you make your style happen? And I remember someone saying, I can't remember who it was, but just years ago, just saying, like, just don't worry about it. Like, focusing on your style is not going to make it happen. It's like, your style will happen naturally as an extension of who you are.
Yep.
And I do think that maybe my interest shifting away from comics, being so comics focused all the time, was of a great benefit to me in terms of really defining my voice as an artist, both in that now I just put everyone in rollerblades in my stuff, but also in just like, you think differently as a skater. It is a form of creativity, of expression. It is a form of using your body in a different way and problem solving, which is essentially what making comics and making drawings is. And flexing your, or like expanding your approaches to these things just kind of comes back around, you know, and allows you to do that in a different way, with the drawing and the comics and whatever artistic expression you're doing. So I think that's where it really benefited me. Kids taking pencils out of my hands and having to figure out how to skate again and use my body in a completely different way.
Yeah. No, I can. I haven't read your earlier works with Ryan Lindsay and stuff like that, but obviously seen, you know, quite a bit of your stuff, and like I haven't read them, but I've seen your work. I can see that it is still Louis Joyce. I can see that, like, I guess with what I said to you in the intro, is there's a vibrancy and a pop and like, you know, like the whole flashes and the yellows on blacks and lightning bolts and stars and bright colors and things like that. That I now am more familiar with in terms of that creative side from you, you know. But from like talking to you now, I can totally see how you've naturally come to that like state, man. It's also, I wonder, you mentioned before you were doing a comic book with a gentleman, and you came on late in the creative process, and there was a person that had done layout work. So it's just so I can like clear that up for me and just for listeners. The definition of that is, did they do the pencils very loosely and the storytelling work, and you came in and inked? How did it rock and roll for that? Because I've seen some of those pages, and you're still there, and that's what how much freedom did you have there in your lessons? That's so
this is the book.
Yep.
And so it's Past the Last Mountain, and it changed from page to page. But Gannon, so there's
beautiful.
That's an example of some layouts that Gannon did.
I've
got to go the other way. And then versus final art. So it would be loose pencils.
Yeah.
And then I would be doing inks or lines and colors. Wait, which way do I go? So there.
So you really did have a lot of freedom there, man. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I mean, and I was able to change stuff wherever I saw fit to. He was brought on twofold, because I hadn't done, the book was originally being published by Third Eye Comics, I think was the name of the publisher. But I was brought on, because I was brought on late and I hadn't done a monthly book before, the Gannon came on board to speed up the process. So he would do layouts and I could just shift right into doing a final finished art. But it ended up taking longer than we anticipated anyway, and went through a publisher change. Third Eye, I think, as a publisher, I don't know if they dropped the book or if they went under. I can't really remember. But so we ended up having more time to work on it, which was good. And it was a really, as I said, a really valuable experience for me, because I hadn't done anything that long before.
Yep.
And Gannon had. And so being able to work over his layouts allowed me to analyze a lot of his decision-making processes and you know, figure out why he was doing things, and sometimes recognize if I thought another way might work better or whatever, you know. So,
well, it would have taught you communication skills too, you know, like dealing with, you know, like other people, and then there would, I imagine, like there would have been an element of like, I'm gonna do it. You know what I mean? Like, and just have a go at it. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm better to, ask, like, beg forgiveness and ask permission, sort of thing. You know what I mean? Like, and run the gauntlet a little bit. Like, there would have been a lot of different emotions and stuff going through you too, man. Like,
Yeah,
just,
definitely.
because
Yeah,
that's
it was
what drawing can give you, man. Is like, little bits of fear. Like, and I
yeah,
like fear, man. Gives you a high. Hey, like when you take a shot like that, like we were saying, walk the tightrope, because it's I, much like you, similar path but different, created. I wish you would have been around when I was young, man, to tell me to do an 8-page story, because I'm the idiot that decided to do it, like 200-page story that ended up, probably be 300 pages and stuff.
yeah, amazing.
And still going. And I was in my own little box for years doing this while I was working and
Yeah,
teaching myself, starting the page down, and I was, man, like the things you do, like, must have gone through hundreds of pages working while I was learning, you know what I mean? So do a
yeah,
page, do like it, I'll redo it, going back. So it took years, man, to get, like,
yeah.
issues done and stuff. And then, oi, that's my dog too, if you're wondering. Lloyd's my dog. He's my sidekick and my wingman.
Cute.
So if you hear that, like, that's just him mucking around.
Cute.
And he like, and so I got stuck doing, by myself, and I'm in North Queensland. So, and
Yeah,
people know, isolated, not a particularly big comic book, creating type area. And so get my comic book out, sense of accomplishment, but man, sense of like just dickhead size ego of like, yeah, I'm like, great comic book artist, rah, rah, like, I'm not, just overinflated to the max, man. Like, I don't even want to know that guy, but and came across comics and met people and stuff, and started doing Friday night drinking draws and things, and drawing other people, like characters, which I hadn't done because I'd been so intently just drawing my own characters for so long. I'd forgot, and like you were saying before, your mind isn't able to be free because you're just focusing on this one ridiculously giant project that you're digging a hole in. You know what I mean? Like, and you sort of can't escape, so you're getting bogged. And then through the process, I became like great mates with Ryan Vella, Rob Spedsy Lyle, and Ben Sullivan, and spent a year or so working with these guys, penciling, inking, learning, collaborating, that, some were writing, all these sorts of things, man. And I would say, from what you've said about collaborations and like what I've experienced with collaborations, yeah, man, if there's anyone out there that wants to like learn something and like really be brought back to a level of like how much you don't know, and like learning from things, is collaborate, man, because it's like you just, big portion of it pushed me on to discovering new things about my artwork, having the openness to be more open to learning, not realizing that if you aren't learning in artwork, I guess, man, and creativity, then I don't know why you keep doing it, mate. You know what I mean? Like, you just get to the point, it's like it loses its fun and its vibrancy and things, you know what I mean? And attitude is a big role. I had a terrible attitude, man. Like, I was like, honestly, like, Louis, you would have thrown your roller skates at me if you would have met me 5 or 6 years ago. It's like you would have been like, what is this guy doing? But these dudes grounded me, man, like they were like, oi, you know what I mean? Like, nah, like, have a go, and it took a while to like, oh, now I'm getting the jig, you know what I mean? Like, I'm starting to like see things for what it is. So collaboration is an awesome thing. It's a beautiful thing. With with Past the Last Mountain, am I correct in seeing somewhere on socials of late that was that the book that's being re-released, or is that? Yeah. Tell us
Yes.
about that one, man, because that's coming up, or is it out and about at the moment?
So I think it's releasing into comic book stores in August, I want to say.
Yeah.
And then into the book market in September, although maybe that's the opposite way around, I'm not sure. But so it's a smaller, it's like a digest size edition. This isn't it, but like a smaller, this is a Godzilla book. It's a smaller digest edition that's kind of targeted towards the YA market. So it's had some decent legs, that book, as a project. The original, as I said, the original publisher went under. We kickstarted the print edition, which was published by Comics Express, and they did an amazing job. And this is that trade paperback, and it included the original 4 issues that I did, and then a whole bunch of backup stories by different artists. And then it got released as single issues last year through the direct market. I think it was last year. And so now it's getting a collected edition, which is just the 4 issues. That's targeted towards the YA market, because it kind of sits really well within that range, that age range.
Well, that YA
political.
It's going off at the moment, isn't it? So you'd be like mad not to, really. But that was a well-received book, man. Like, from my understanding, the issues and that, you must be pretty proud of the feedback you've had coming from that.
Yeah, I am. I'm really happy with that book. Like, it was a good experience working on it. I still talk with Paul, the writer, fairly often, and we often talk about wanting to figure something else out together as a project going forward. But it was through that work that Past the Last Mountain that Norm Harper, who wrote Hap Haven, he had read that book, and so we won a Silver Ledger Award, I think in 2017. 2017. And so, it was cool to see the good feedback that I got, and the good reviews and this good stuff that came out of it. And then Hap Haven.
Tell us about that too, because I'm not aware of that one, man.
I'll just see if I have. Oh, 1 second. So Hap Haven.
You've got a portal too, mate. That's the comic portal. It's good.
Yeah, it's all behind me and on the ground, and
as it should be.
Hap Haven is as I said, a kind of middle grade or all ages fantasy adventure story written by Norm Harper. It came out in 2019 originally, but it is also seeing another release this year. So there's a brand new deluxe edition, hardcover edition, coming out through Oni Press in June. So both those books are coming back to shelves this year, which is really exciting.
Like turning into the year of Louis Joyce, mate. You know what I mean? Like 2024, Louis Joyce, come on down.
I don't know how it's all timed. I mean, it's hard. It's hard in the comic industry because there's so much good. There are so many good comics that come out on a weekly basis, on a yearly basis. It is hard. It is very easy for things to just kind of disappear in all of it, and to make a little splash or no splash or ripples or whatever it is, and just and that can be demoralizing. I don't know. It's a thing you have to deal with in an industry that is churning stuff out all the time. But
good
comics have legs, they kind of they can find new releases, and if you can manage to do that, it feels good,
mate. I guess it's quality over quantity, isn't it? You know what I mean? It's like you can hear 100 songs on the radio, but there might only be 2 or 3 that stick out to you, and like over time, like they're classics and the cult, like cult movies and things like that, like I don't recall any David Lynch movies making $100 million, mate, but that dude's, like he's still rocking, like, and, he's known. And that's that. Longevity, man, like, what do you want to be? To a certain extent, Louis, I 100% understand where you're talking, like, with there, man, because, like, for me, like, I'm probably the worst salesman of any comic book that I do, like, independently, and that, because I just love the process, man. I love the drawing. I'm just so invested in the creative side of it.
Yeah.
That once it's done, I don't really care. Like, I know that it's so dumb. You know what I mean? Like, and anyone listening to me is going to go, this guy's crazy. But I just, like, my thing is, like, the seeing it and the holding it and the smelling the paper and all that weird stuff in the moment. And then whatever happens with it after that, man, to me is like, that's up to the universe, man. That's up to people. It's like, if I'm proud and I'm happy, man, like, I'll just whatever, like, because, like, with man, the really weird part is, right, like, I'll sort of veer off on a slight tangent so you understand what I'm talking about with that. Like, I'm independent. Like, you've had the opportunity to have publishing and that sort of thing, like proper, like, books in those realms, where I'm very independent, do things myself. I hate deadlines, man. Like, my artwork takes me forever. Sometimes it's like, people say, how long does it take you to do a page? It's like, how long's a piece of string, man? I don't know, like, just what happens. And I was thinking, like, one of the reflection moments that I had in the last couple of weeks is because after 2.5, nearly 3 years of having a break, because of going through recovery and things like that, and losing myself, finding myself again, getting to a point, like working, I'm just pretty much finished everything for the next series of Battle for Bustle, and due to circumstances, you have to go back and read, obviously, the previous issues to bring us up to speed, make sure things like dot the I's, cross T's, and that sort of thing. And man, I realized that I don't even remember drawing the 4th issue, man.
Yeah, that's at all.
That's at all. Like, not a bar.
Wow.
And that was just with what I obviously had to recover from since. And I just decided at that stage, I was very much into, I want people to buy it. I want people to do that. Rah, rah, rah. And then I realized, like, dude, for me, one of the saddest moments, man, and like, it's only been the last couple of weeks, I guess, I've really reflected on this. I realized I don't even remember the joys of drawing that issue or the creation of that issue, man, like, because I was just a shocking drinker. And time thought I was, like, and now in reflection, I'm savoring the art and the process and finding freedom in recovery and the joy of the creative process, man. So I guess, like, Louis, what you're saying is you have, earlier with, you have your highs, you have your lows, man, in terms of, like, your certainties, your uncertainties, your confidence, your lack of confidence, and things like that, man. I can understand them on many levels, like, and understand what you're going through. But sometimes I think, my man, you got to just, like, just let the universe take it, mate. You know what I mean? It's like, if one thing I've seen, man, in the last 2.5 years, dude, is like, I don't know, man. I would have no other word for it other than magic. It's just things happen that there is no explanation for, that just happen at the right time when they're supposed to, whether you've asked for it or not, you need it, you want, like, just things happen. And I think sometimes it's certain things are taken out of your hands, man, That's just my whimsical mindset at the moment. But I would think that if you're getting like new versions of those comic books out, man, they've been well received in the past. I mean, you've got your illustrating and comic book career is kicking off, because we're about to come in and talk about like what I would say is a pretty big comic book that you're doing, or like IP. And weirdly enough, Louis, you were saying, I don't know how these things happen. 2024, you've got these two, trade paperbacks coming out, going into a YA section of, bookstores, which would blow my mind seeing the comic book I did in a, QBD. And, that's all happening at once. And then, there's been I believe there's been 2 movies of this next IP. One's just been released. One's just come out, like earlier in the year, that was extremely well received. This character's been around for like 50 or 60 years. And suddenly, Louis, you are going to drop Godzilla, your version, like onto the world very shortly, man. So your journey that you've discussed this evening, coming to Godzilla, and I would like to add to anyone that go on to Louis's sites, because he's got a version, like he shows you what he's doing with the cover, and it's beautiful, man.
Thank you.
All in skates as well, mate. So you've like the best of both worlds. Everything's coming up Louis at the moment. So take us through that, man. Like how did you come across like one of the classic IPs, in the world? Like what that?
I was contacted by an editor at IDW, Jasmine Joyner. And they contacted me out of the blue about pitching for for a one shot, a Godzilla one shot. And this was, I can't remember exactly when, but it was a while ago now. And around that time, at first I would try to figure out if it was spam or something, or like some kind of.
You didn't believe it,
like,
man.
what?
You were like, what? Nah, what?
Why? As well, because they were like, it was to write as well, and I've always written my own short stories, but I've never written anything longer form, in this way before. So I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure of the legitimacy of what I was being offered, but it was legit, and I at the time, as I was into skating, and I'm still into skating, but at the time there was, I guess it must have just happened, but there was during lockdown, a friend of mine started a DIY skate park in Port Kembla with his son. So there was a slab of concrete. One side has a basketball court on it, the other is just cracked concrete. And during the lockdown laws, they closed skate parks, and they had all those rules about exercising and yada yada, all that stuff. But so this friend of mine, he went with his son, and they just started building stuff on this slab of concrete, little ramps, little boxes, little rails, and other people started just adding to it. And I started going there and skating, and me and Pat would go there and skate, and other friends of ours, and we'd go there with the kids. A great place to skate with the kids because it was so flat and safe and quiet, and just became a really, really beautiful, integral part of physical and mental health around that time, around that weird COVID
and that community.
And a whole community kind of flourished around it, of skaters, and some you would know and some you wouldn't know, and some you'd just see and say good day to, and but you'd go there and something new would have been added, and you could skate it, or things would have moved around, and it's like a fluid kind of evolving. DIY skate parks are really fascinating. They're really good ones, have really strong communities around them, and you can feel like you're a part of that community even if you're not an active part of the person or the group that's doing the majority of the building or the maintaining or the maintenance of that space. But anyway, so then the all of that was happening, and then eventually the council was like, we got word that the council was just going to tear it down because it's like, you're not supposed to have a skate park there, which often happens to DIY spots. They're often built in. There's another one in Wollongong that me and Pat would skate, like in the hard lockdown time. We'd meet up once or twice a week at 6 o'clock in the morning and skate this one spot in an old parking lot. Still my favorite spot that I've ever skated, but it's like been completely demolished, and there's an apartment block going up there now or something. Which is a shame, but I mean, that's how it goes. But this spot in Port Kembla was such a perfect spot and such a great community around it. And then the council was just going to come and get rid of it and step on it and squash it. And for me, that was like, here's this big, huge entity of the council coming to destroy something that this community and these kids have built and love, and what are they going to do? Like, how are they going to handle that? And what are they going to do to protect it or save it? And that was really the genesis or the spark for the idea for my Godzilla pitch.
Yeah.
And so the whole thing is inspired in part by that. And over the course of pitching the book and developing it with the editors at IDW, it has grown into a 5-issue miniseries. It's all set in Australia. It's all set in Port Kembla. It's all about a group of 4 skater punks who get wind of this big kaiju battle that's happening, and they're trying to get in and save what they can. And it feels like a dream project that that has been developing over a long time, that I was constantly kind of pinching myself at having, but also not allowing myself to get too excited about.
Yeah. Just
because that's the nature of being a creative and doing projects, and sometimes they go the way you want and sometimes they don't. And but yeah, now I'm drawing pages and drawing covers and I'm having a blast. And
How long? Oh, dude, like, like I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall when you were like working out whether it was spam or not. You know what I mean? Like, for real? You know what I mean? Like, you have to like double read it or anything like that. Like,
absolutely.
Get my like details. Like,
there's this
going on.
Have you ever seen that movie, Howl's Moving Castle?
Yes, I have.
Do you know the bit after Sophie, the main girl, is turned into an old lady, and she looks in the mirror and she's freaked out and she walks off slowly, and then she just turns around and comes back and walks in and looks at the mirror and then freaks out again and then walks out slowly and does that a few times? That was it. I was just like, I was reading it and I just leave, and then I come, what?
I reckon it's really cool. Man, I don't know, Louis, universe is working for you, dude. Like, you must have some good karmic energy or something going on, man, because it's like, like you're having these moments, you're building a community, do it yourself skate park. You've got this idea, like it's floating in your head, like, and as soon as you were describing it to me, man, like about this big entity coming in and stepping on, like this little thing, I was like, there's your Godzilla story, gotcha. You know what I mean? Like, and that was a 1-issue shot, and then did they let you just whoosh, let it go, man? Like, just imagination, or did you keep coming back to them? Were they trying to reel you in, or what? How did that go?
Initially they were like, oh, it's not a fit. It's not a fit for the one shot. So we won't be using it for that. And so that felt like the end of it. But then they said they were interested in me pitching it as its own mini series, and so it just went from there. And the idea grew bigger and incorporated a few more elements, but at its core, it's still very much that same story. And it's, you know, it is inspired by this real life PK DIY, but it's also very much inspired by these memories I have that I was talking about earlier of skating around with my friends in Newey, and it's inspired by like watching my kids still, you know, and their friends and them hanging out, and the different skaters that I see and know at various skate parks. So it's the characters are kind of an amalgam of a lot of different things and influences, and the story is very much also just about you know, the joy of having wheels on your feet, and the connections you make because of a shared passion and all of these things, and yeah, but with a big kaiju battle going on all around it.
Yeah.
So it's Godzilla and Varan fighting each other in Port Kembla. Yeah.
That's very, very cool. Wow, man. Like how far are you through it, dude? Like how
I've got most of the covers done. I'm drawing issue 2 at the moment, finishing up on issue 2, and then rolling into issue 3. So yeah, it's going.
Keep it coming.
Yeah, it's good. It's like, it's hard. It's been tricky because I am doing everything, writing and drawing and colors
and colors. You're doing the whole kit and caboodle.
It is a lot of balls to juggle. And
have you done that before?
Nah, not on deadlines like this before.
Yeah.
No, and not on this larger project before.
I think fortune favors the brave, Louis. It's like you know, like running that line, man. Like we've spoken about, you know.
Yeah, it's like, definitely running that line. I'm definitely running that line, and I'll just do. I'm feeling good. You're feeling vibrant and stuff.
You feel like you got.
Yeah, I'm having a good time. I'm really happy with what I'm doing. It's like, it's one of those things where I'm just focusing on making the work, and I'll have time to reflect on more of it next year or some other time down the line.
Yeah.
But now it's just about, you know, getting it out there, getting it done, and getting it in front of as many people as possible.
Yeah, that's beautiful. When are you expecting its first issue to touch down, mate?
First issue drops June 12th. So that'll be in comic stores 12th of June.
So first issue's off at printers. It's all like getting proofed and all that, wherever it comes from. Oh man, you must be getting excited. You seen any of the proofs yet, like for yourself?
I haven't seen no print proofs yet, but I'm seeing some stuff that has me very excited. So yeah, it's good. It's exciting seeing it all. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant, man. Like, I'm really happy for you, dude. Now, I've only just met you, mate. You know, like, but you got me all like G'd up because like you're just like passionate dude, man. You're like free spirited fella, man. You know, I like that. Like, even though you know, you're hard working, you had your eye on the prize, man. You've combined all your passions, your wife, your kids, you know, your love of skating, your artwork. You know, like you're in a good headspace. You're like said that you're feeling more comfortable now with what you're creating, producing and stuff like that, you know, like good energy. It's attracted this giant project that, you know, like they've given you, you know, like control over everything, man. Test the waters. There you go. Run the gauntlet. You're feeling good still. You're not scared. You know what I mean? Like that's
terrified. Absolutely terrified.
Yeah, but in a good way, mate. You know, like you know, like in a good way. Look at you. You're smiling, you're laughing, mate. You're having a ball, man. You know, it's and that's the best thing to do. Is like that's the journey, and you know, sounds like you've had a ripping journey, bud. You know, like
it's been fun.
You know, yeah. You got not only this, but you got you got your kids. One of them might turn out to be, you know, just like the old, you know, dad. You know, like chip off the block, mate, going down the illustrator path and that eventually, you know, and you can.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, you're like, oh, you know, like hard road, that hard road.
Yeah.
So, Louis, as man, as we wind down tonight's chinwag, I usually end off on like things like like why, but I think we've covered that, as in a why do you do it to yourself? Because I think you very eloquently and very directly tonight, we have brought everything symmetrically, you know what I mean, which is which is what I try and hopefully achieve with Chinwags, to tell people stories from beginning to where they are now through, you know, gas bagging and just yarning. And I have had a great deal of pleasure tonight because I found myself not having to do much chinwagging and instead listen. And I do like listening to a good story, mate. And you're a good storyteller.
Thanks.
And communicatively, you're a good storyteller in terms of your creative craft and stuff like that. And you're reaching some good heights, man. And it's good for yourself. It's good for Australian comic books. It's good for Australian creators, you know. And that's it's good news all around. It's great work, man. So double thumbs up to you, my man. And
thank you very much.
Louis, I will ask you this though. Now, if little Louis walked up to big Louis in a comic book convention, and said, "How do I get to be, you know, like where you are now, big Louis?" What would you say to little Louis?
Just go rollerblading.
Just go rollerblading, man. Yeah.
Don't worry about it too much. Just have fun.
Yeah.
Find a good partner who is patient and supportive and calls you out when you're doing stupid stuff or making decisions that maybe aren't the best decisions, and that can be really blunt about your work when you ask for your opinion, for their opinion, but always has your back. And I found that in my wife, and I definitely wouldn't be where I am making the stuff I am without her. So that would probably be my secret weapon.
I think that's beautiful, mate. I think that's you know, I don't think partners get enough credit for supporting their artistic partners. It can be extra, you know, Louis, we were talking earlier about sacrifices and stuff like that, man. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of sacrifices that go into being creative, no matter what field you're in. If you're driven and passionate about something, man, and it can take a toll on a lot of areas, man, unless you got someone that loves you, man, and supports you. You know what I mean? And vice versa, because it can become all encompassing, and you can easily fall down that hole, mate, and lose sight of things. So I am one of those people that has done that in the past, and you know, recognize how very important it is to have that mutual understanding while, you know, also proceeding on your path. Mate, I've really enjoyed talking to you today, Louis. Like, I really do like you, man. It's Nick May. Fantastic chat. What a great story. Good luck with everything, Louis. And
thank you very much.
I think Nick May just said it perfectly, because I've really enjoyed the night, mate. Your free spirit, your flow attitude, and you've got a good spiritual content, man, and I like that, especially where I am in life right now too. You know what I mean? It's an important thing to have, mate. So and you know, even though you've said, you know, you've been very vulnerable and said you're terrified about the biggest project in your life, you know what I mean, you're at your happiest and you're humming along at what I would class as someone that's at great peace with themselves, and, you know, like their life rolling around that they're in at the moment. So Louis, where can people find your work if they would like to go out and find some Louis Joyce creative goodness?
LouisJoyce.com, and that has links to most of my other places. But at Louie Joyce on Instagram, that's the main one. That's the one that I post on most. And Tumblr, I think. But yeah, at Louie Joyce, most places. Or just Google Louie Joyce. I should be in there somewhere.
Yeah. And keep an eye out June 12th.
Yeah. And I just really want to say thank you for having me on. I've also had a really great time chatting. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, no, man, it's been wicked. Like I appreciate it, man. I appreciate getting this moment with you, man. You know, there's a lot of hustle and bustle that happens around, but to talk to a like-minded individual as yourself, and that shares a lot of similar thoughts and feelings, I guess, you know, like is always a pleasure, and I greatly thank you for coming on the show, and
thank you.
You're always welcome back, mate. So it's,
let's do it again sometime.
we will indeed. You can quote me on that. I know where you're at now. I won't leave you alone, you know, so I'll be following you.
Just let me finish this comic first.
yeah, no, that's cool, man. That's all good. You know where I'm at now. Like we know each other now, man. So it's
sounds good.
That's the power of the chinwag. All right. So as I bring another Tuesday chinwag to an end, thank you everyone for whoever, you know, like always tunes in, all the people that watch the show and keep it going and send in their comments and watch and rewatch and support Comex and support Aussieverse. It's greatly appreciated, and it's lovely. So thank you to everyone. Don't forget to like and subscribe Aussieverse and Comex across all formats, because, you know, like, we are very passionate. Everyone here, whether it's me doing chinwag or Louis out there doing Godzilla and his stuff, or whether you're just out there watching drawing and things like that, you know, because as Louis pointed out tonight, communities are good, man. You know, like communities can build spirit. You find like-minded people. You have a connection, you know what I mean? And sometimes you don't get to have connections with people that share, you know, loves and interests that you do. And at Comex and Aussieverse, you know what I mean? Like, you can see Louis and I have never met each other before tonight, but we've had a great chat. I've learnt things, Louis learnt things about me, and this is just, you know, one of the little things that can happen, you know. Magic everywhere. You just got to know how to look for it. So there's an open door, walk through it and you'll be welcome. And I can't wait to meet you at some point, to anyone that's out there that wants to come on. I would just like to say thank you for the Comex shop sponsoring the show. So don't forget that if you are an Australian comic book creator and you want an online outlet to sell your comic books, the Comex shop, you know, is a place to go. There's over 100 Australian comics titles. You do not just have to be a Comex studio comic book to be in the Comex shop. You can be anyone that creates comic books. So if you go to the website, you'll find little, you know, frequently asked questions, etc., and you'll find a website and an email. You'll be able to talk to Shane about how you get your stock in there and discuss all the finer details. But there's a $9 flat rate, so that means you can buy one comic book or you can buy 20. It's all across the board, so it doesn't really matter if you do not want to buy mine. This is not why I'm here. I'm here for the community. I'm here for the love of the Australian comic book industry. You know what I mean? Like, you go and get anyone's that's in there. Just click on that website and go and check it out for yourself. So just remember, everyone, you know, we're all community. Me and Louis are community minded. We've discussed that tonight. So the favorite saying is community is unity. Now I'm going to have with Sis next week off because we got a few little loose ends that we need to tidy up. I got to bring my Battle for Bustle comic book home. Sis has got a couple of things that he needs to tidy up with some Kickstarters and go and do a few things to look after himself. We'll be back on April 30th, and believe it or not, I started off Chinwag wondering, I just wanted to do 6 shows. And when I come back on April 30th with Sis, we're on a countdown to getting up to show 50. So that's a bit of a spin out, and something I'm grateful for, and something I'm grateful for all the support for everyone watching and just being part of things. So just remember, community is unity and chinwag is made with love. And thank you very much, Louis, and see everyone in a couple of weeks. Take care. Good evening.
This show is sponsored by the Comex Shop. Check out comex.cx for all things Comex and find out what Comex is all about. We hope you enjoyed the